Ford's fight back against sinking profits begins today with the unveiling of its new F-150 truck.
Trucks once priced at 80 grand are now begging for 20. That's not generosity, it's a death rattle.
Thousands of trucks ready for sale, just sitting unused in lots.
Every unsold pickup drains $50 a day from the dealer's pocket. Those balloons, banners, and forced smiles, they're masks for panic. The longer the trucks sit, the closer the dealership sinks. So how much longer before the system buckles? Who's really paying for these markdowns? And what happens when the flood of losses reaches your town? Stick with me, because this collapse is already happening. The fake sale. They're not doing you a favor. They're begging you to take the keys. Walk onto a dealership lot this autumn, and you will see banners screaming about savings that sound too good to be true. Trucks once priced at $80,000 are now listed at $20,000, sometimes less. The numbers look like a jackpot, but every driver knows deep down that jackpots come with strings attached. Dealers are not feeling generous. They are drowning. Each unsold truck bleeds interest costs, floor plan charges, and corporate pressure. Every day that a pickup sits, it drags the dealership closer to red ink. That is why they smile wider, talk faster, and throw discounts like confetti, because the longer you wait, the more desperate they become. For the buyer, this desperation can flip the power dynamic. The dealer who once dictated every term now fights just to move metal. But beneath the glossy signs lies a warning. These markdowns are not a gift. They are a distress signal. They reveal an industry that believed its own hype, kept factories humming, and ignored the reality that families could not keep paying luxury prices for basic work machines. Now the lots are full, the math is brutal, and the sales pitch is a mask for panic. But if markdowns tell one story of collapse, the failed promise of electrics tells another, and it cuts even deeper. The electric lie. They sold you the future. It broke in your driveway. When the F-150 Lightning rolled out, it was marketed as a revolution. Ads promised endless torque, quiet strength, and an electric halo for working families. General Motors hyped the Silverado EV with the same breathless confidence. Waiting lists filled up, buyers believed, and then reality struck. Owners who hitched boats or trailers discovered that their truck's range collapsed by nearly half. A promised 300 miles turned into 150 the moment weight was applied. Cold weather hammered batteries even further, dropping capacity by 40% or more. Suddenly, a $75,000 truck became a very expensive driveway ornament. The frustration spread like wildfire. Contractors who counted on all-day reliability found themselves stranded between jobs, praying a charging station would work. Families who thought they were buying the future discovered they had purchased uncertainty. Online forums filled with bitter testimonies. One Michigan electrician put it simply, "I thought I was buying progress. Instead, I bought a science experiment that sting of paying more and receiving less poisoned the dream that executives had promised." Dealers who loaded up on these trucks now face lots full of silent hulks, each bleeding dollars in carrying costs. The banners that once bragged about the future now hide embarrassment. If electrics lost their shine, the luxury flagships suffered an even harsher fall, symbols of pride collapsing into monuments of excess. If you've seen the same cracks, prices collapsing, promises broken, hit the like button so more people wake up. And drop your story in the comments, because your voice might be the proof others need to see the truth. The luxury joke. Six-figure trucks now rot on lots, and dealers would rather give them away than keep paying the bill. The GMC Hummer EV was pitched as the crown jewel, a six-figure electric colossus meant to prove dominance and innovation. The Escalade IQ promised prestige on wheels, the kind of vehicle that would make neighbors stare. But the market delivered its own verdict. These trucks did not inspire envy, they inspired hesitation. A vehicle that weighs more than a dump truck but travels fewer than 200 miles under load is not a halo, it is an anchor. Owners who could afford them looked elsewhere, while dealers discovered that every day of aging added $50 or more in silent costs. One manager admitted that a single Hummer had already eaten nearly $19,000 in interest while gathering dust. What was supposed to elevate the brand instead humiliated it. A truck meant to symbolize power became a symbol of arrogance. Shoppers now walk past rows of untouched six-figure giants and mutter that they would rather buy something that works. And as these machines linger, dealers whisper about refreshes and production adjustments, thin code words for demand collapse. Prestige turned into punishment. But if luxury dreams withered, the collapse that hurt the most was the betrayal of the trucks people actually depended on to make a living. The workhorse betrayal. Your grandfather's truck lasted forever. Yours doesn't make it past 30,000 miles. The most painful part of this collapse is not luxury gone wrong or failed promises of electrification. It is the betrayal of the workhorse. For decades, contractors, farmers, and families relied on diesel and heavy-duty pickups that could haul, tow, and endure. They were marketed as indestructible. Now, emission systems turn durability into fragility. Trucks slip into limp mode over a minor sensor glitch. Injectors fail before the first payment book is halfway done. Repair bills climb into thousands long before warranties expire. A fleet manager in Ohio financed 12 trucks. 8 of them sat useless in the yard at the same time. One Colorado owner spent nearly $7,000 on repairs within 2 years. Her old truck never saw the inside of a shop. The new one practically lives there. These failures cut deeper than broken prestige. They strike at the people who keep communities running. When a farmer misses harvest runs or a contractor misses a job because his truck quit, it is not just frustration. It is income lost, credibility shattered, and families put at risk. Reliability was supposed to be the one promise the truck market could always keep. That promise has been broken, and if the trucks meant for hard labor can no longer be trusted, then the financial math behind the entire system starts to look just as broken. Bleeding lots. Every sunrise costs your dealer $50, and that's your weapon. Behind the banners and balloons, dealers are bleeding. Each truck sitting unsold on the lot racks up floor plan costs. The daily interest dealers pay for inventory they financed but haven't moved. On a single pickup, that bill can hit $40 or $50 per day. After 100 days, the truck that looked like a profit turns into a money pit. Multiply that across rows of pickups, and you can see why managers are desperate. They once bragged about selection. Now every extra unit is another leak in the ship. That desperation flips the balance of power. For decades, buyers walked into dealerships at a disadvantage, with managers holding the cards. Now it is reversed. The longer you wait, the more leverage you hold. That is why you hear phrases like unrepeatable deal or must-move unit. They are not sales pitches. They are distress calls. Dealers would rather lose money on paper than keep feeding the interest meter. For the shopper, the key is timing. Find the vehicles that have aged 90 days or more. Every day after that, pressure builds and your negotiating power grows. What feels like victory for you is actually survival for them. And while dealers bleed in silence, buyers feel the squeeze from another direction, crushing credit terms that turned freedom into a trap. Choked by credit. The payment isn't freedom anymore. It's a second mortgage. For years, pickup trucks were the aspirational buy. Families stretched for them because they felt like investments in work, safety, and pride. But when average prices crossed $80,000 and interest rates climbed, those dreams curdled. Suddenly, the monthly note that once sat at $400 ballooned toward $1,200. For households already hit by groceries, rent, and medical bills, the numbers simply did not work. Buyers stopped showing up not because they lost interest, but because they lost breathing room. High annual percentage rates cut deepest for the very people automakers relied on. Contractors with solid but uneven income, young families in smaller towns, or workers with average credit found themselves quoted terms that looked more like punishment than opportunity. A truck that was supposed to pay for itself through work became a burden heavier than a mortgage. Dealers who tried to mask the reality with rebates or extended terms only made things worse, stretching loans so far that buyers risked being underwater for nearly a decade. The affordability wall explains why so many lots are overflowing. It is not that America suddenly stopped loving trucks. It is that America cannot afford the debt tied to them. And as buyers walked away, Washington's promises of relief turned into chaos of their own, swinging markets with each new rule. Policy games. One vote in Washington can raise or erase your rebate overnight. Government incentives were supposed to make the shift to electric vehicles smoother. Instead, they created chaos. One year, a buyer walks in and qualifies for a $7,500 credit on a new truck. The next year, the credit disappears because the model was built in the wrong factory or sourced the wrong battery. Tariffs pile thousands onto imported parts, only for a new subsidy to offset part of the cost. Families planning a purchase cannot tell what they will pay until the paperwork is signed. Dealers live with the same instability. They cannot advertise clean out the door prices because tomorrow's vote could rewrite today's incentives. Some dealers now push leasing tricks or finance arm workarounds just to keep credits alive for a few more months. To the customer, it feels like a shell game. The rules shift mid-deal, and the buyer is left wondering if they should wait for the next program or rush before it vanishes. Policy tug-of-war leaves ordinary families as collateral damage. The elite hedge funds and executives will adapt no matter what. But the family that just wanted a reliable truck for work ends up trapped between subsidies that vanish and tariffs that swell. And even if policy stayed steady, the trucks themselves still had to prove they could perform where it mattered, on real pavement. Not in glossy brochures, paper promises versus pavement. On paper it tows the world, on the road it can't tow your boat. Spec sheets looked glorious. Automakers boasted about torque, range, towing capacity, and technology that sounded bulletproof. But when owners actually used their trucks, the shine wore off. Haul a trailer, and your range can collapse by nearly half. Head into a cold snap, and you might lose 40% of your battery before you even reach the job site. Depend on public chargers, and you risk finding broken machines or endless waits. The contrast between advertising and reality cut deep. Buyers paid luxury prices expecting peace of mind. Instead, they got stress tests. Contractors discovered their trucks could not last a full shift without hunting for a plug. Families who wanted to tow a camper learned the hard way that advertised numbers were fantasy. Even brands once trusted for durability looked fragile when exposed to daily life. This mismatch explains why resale values for some electric and hybrid trucks are collapsing faster than their batteries drain. Word spreads quickly when a so-called revolution leaves people stranded. Communities that once celebrated innovation now whisper warnings. And with every broken promise, the industry's credibility erodes further, setting the stage for even greater shocks as the collapse ripples through households and entire towns. Families underwater. You're not driving a truck, you're dragging an anchor. For many families, what was supposed to be a tool for freedom has turned into a trap. A pickup that cost $80,000 only 2 years ago may now be worth barely half of that, leaving owners stuck with crushing negative equity. They owe more than the truck is worth, and that gap grows wider every month. When the transmission fails or the emission system collapses, the repair bills come due on top of the loan, pushing households into impossible decisions. Do they fix the truck and miss the mortgage, or skip repairs and miss work? Neither choice feels like survival. Stories echo across communities. A contractor in Ohio bought a heavy-duty diesel to keep his crew working. Within 1 year, repairs sidelined the truck for weeks, forcing him to rent equipment just to keep projects moving. The debt still sat on his shoulders, even while the truck sat in the shop. Families who thought they were investing in something solid now described their trucks as anchors, dragging them further into debt with every mile. The personal toll is enormous, but it does not stop at the household level. Those unsustainable costs roll into local dealerships where managers face their own impossible math. Trapped dealers. The factory tells them, sell more, faster, even when buyers have walked away. Dealers are supposed to be the middlemen, the bridge between corporate automakers and local communities. But when manufacturers demand higher quotas and ship more vehicles than the market wants, those middlemen are squeezed from both sides. They cannot refuse the shipments. They cannot lower prices without slashing their own margins, and they cannot ignore the floor plan interest clock, ticking louder every day. Corporate executives keep pointing to throughput numbers, insisting the pipeline stay full while customers are vanishing from the showrooms. This leaves managers trapped. They know buyers are hesitant, but they also know their corporate bosses will punish them for falling short. Some dealers resort to hidden fees, overpriced add-ons, or extended financing gimmicks just to hit the targets that keep them alive. Others quietly beg the factories to slow shipments, even though those pleas often go unanswered. The result is a poisoned relationship. Buyers sense the desperation and push harder. Dealers feel betrayed by the very companies they represent, and in the middle of that fight, trust crumbles. As the front lines collapse, the shock ripples upward to the boardrooms where bold promises of growth suddenly meet harsh reality. Boardroom retreat. Yesterday, they promised endless growth. Today, they're slamming the brakes. Corporate leaders who once boasted of billion-dollar expansions now scramble to preserve margins. Just a year ago, automakers announced new plants, new lines, and non-stop production. Now, projects are being shelved, hiring freezes are quietly spreading, and once proud announcements have been replaced with vague phrases about market adjustments. The optimism that drove press releases has been replaced with caution, bordering on fear. This retreat strikes hardest in the communities built around factories. When shifts are cut, entire towns lose lifelines. Suppliers see orders dry up, restaurants near plants close earlier, and workers who thought they had steady careers suddenly face unemployment. Boardroom decisions that sound abstract on earnings calls land like body blows in the neighborhoods that depend on steady wages. The corporate pivot from growth to contraction shows how quickly fortunes turn when demand evaporates. For investors, it is a defensive move. For communities, it is devastation. Dreams of electric revolutions or luxury dominance give way to survival mode, with the workforce carrying the heaviest burden. Corporate retreats are not abstract. They echo in paychecks and kitchen tables. A canceled project in Detroit means a lost mortgage in the suburbs. What is a strategic shift for the boardroom becomes broken promises and shattered stability for entire communities. And while executives retreat to protect balance sheets, ordinary people face something deeper than lost jobs or shrinking paychecks: the collapse of identity itself. If this breakdown has already opened your eyes, make sure you subscribe right now. That way, when the next piece of this collapse drops, you'll be ready, while everyone else stays blind to what's coming next. The badge lost. Owning a truck used to mean pride. Now it means debt, repairs, and raised eyebrows. For generations, the pickup truck was more than a machine. It was a badge of belonging. Driving one meant you were strong, independent, and tied to a tradition that stretched across farms, highways, and job sites. Ads celebrated this image, selling not just steel and rubber, but a lifestyle. Today, that symbol is tarnished. A brand new truck parked in the driveway no longer inspires admiration. It sparks questions. How much debt did you take on? How long before the lifters fail? How many hours of overtime will it take to keep that payment afloat? Communities that once saw trucks as emblems of resilience now view them as burdens. Contractors keep their older models longer, proudly pointing to miles of reliable service. Younger buyers hesitate, worried that they are stepping into a trap their parents are still paying off. The myth of indestructibility has collapsed under the weight of endless recalls, failed systems, and impossible costs. When pride turns into embarrassment, culture fractures. The pickup once unified towns and families. Now it divides them between those who cling to the badge and those who see it as a trap. That fracture is a wound no marketing campaign can heal. What was once a cultural cornerstone has turned into a cultural liability. And with that loss of meaning, the stage is set for the broader battle, where politics, labor, and global competition decide what comes next. Roulette rules. Your truck's price depends less on the road and more on the next vote. Policies meant to guide the auto industry have turned into a roulette wheel. 1 year, a buyer qualifies for a $7,500 rebate on an electric truck. The next year, that credit disappears because the battery came from the wrong country or the assembly line sits outside the approved zone. Tariffs add thousands to the price of imported steel, only to be offset later by new subsidies. Families trying to plan are left guessing. A truck that seemed affordable on Monday becomes impossible on Friday because of shifting rules no ordinary person can predict. Elites adapt easily. They hire accountants and lobbyists to game the system, timing purchases to capture maximum credits. Ordinary households do not have that luxury. They gamble on whatever policy exists the day they walk into the showroom. Dealers, too, struggle. They cannot advertise clear prices when tomorrow's policy may erase today's deal. This instability poisons trust. People feel tricked, not by dealers or even automakers, but by a system that moves the goalposts at random. Unstable rules turn buying a truck into gambling. You are not choosing horsepower or trim. You are betting on political wins. And while elites hedge their bets, families are left rolling dice with livelihoods on the line. That imbalance cannot last forever. And while rules twist and spin, workers on the assembly line have discovered that chaos in the boardroom can mean leverage on the factory floor. Labor's moment. 2 weeks on strike can cost them more than a year of your payments. For decades, labor unions fought from a position of weakness, told that globalization and automation had the upper hand. Now, the script has flipped. With lots overflowing with unsold trucks, automakers cannot afford even the smallest disruption. A strike lasting just 14 days can bleed millions from companies already reeling under discounts and warranty claims. That math gives workers leverage unseen in a generation. In factory towns, the mood has shifted. Families that once feared layoffs now talk openly about walking out if demands are ignored. Better wages, stronger benefits, and job security during the electric transition have become non-negotiable. Union leaders know that management cannot gamble on drawn-out disputes when carrying costs climb higher every day. Even temporary shutdowns ripple through supply chains, forcing executives to the bargaining table faster than before. Every picket line today carries more weight than a decade of petitions. Companies know one misstep could trigger a shutdown they cannot afford. That awareness gives workers not just bargaining power, but dignity. reminding them that they are the true backbone. This moment is more than dollars and cents. It is pride. Workers who felt disposable now realize the companies need them more than ever. And while labor flexes its muscle, foreign rivals circle, ready to exploit every weakness in America's auto heartland. Rivals at the gate. What happens when a Chinese pickup costs half and works better? Across the Pacific, automakers like BYD and SAIC see opportunity. With vertically integrated supply chains and lower labor costs, they can build trucks for $15,000 and still turn a profit selling them for $20,000. Compare that to American and European automakers burdened with production costs over $30,000 per unit, and the advantage is staggering. These competitors are not aiming at luxury buyers. They are targeting the middle market, the contractors, families, and small businesses who once stretched budgets for Ford, Chevrolet, or Ram. For them, price matters more than branding, and reliability beats prestige. If a Chinese pickup delivers dependable performance at half the cost, loyalty may evaporate overnight. Tariffs and trade barriers delay the wave, but history shows those barriers rarely last. When they fall, showrooms could flood with imports that undercut domestic brands already weakened by recalls and missed promises. Europe faces the same pressure, and emerging markets in Africa and Latin America are already being captured by cheaper, reliable trucks. Imports do not just challenge prices, they challenge pride. If a foreign truck works better for half the money, loyalty erodes fast. That is the real threat. Not just losing sales, but losing identity, surrendering a legacy built over generations. The battlefield is global. But for the ordinary buyer standing in front of a dealership today, the real question is closer to home. How do you flip this crisis into your own advantage? Your advantage. For the first time in decades, the buyer holds the power. In the past, walking into a dealership meant playing defense. Sales managers controlled the paperwork, padded the fees, and reminded customers that demand was endless. That era is gone. Today, lots are crowded, interest costs are climbing, and managers are desperate. Knowledge has become leverage. If you know where to look, you can turn their problem into your win. The first rule is patience. Ask for trucks that have sat more than 90 days. Every day past that point drains money from the dealer, and they know it. The second rule is proof. Demand written coverage for the systems most likely to fail: lifters, turbos, or emission components. Do not accept vague reassurances. Insist on specifics in the contract. The third rule is competition. Show one dealer another's written offer and be ready to walk. Most will call you back with a better deal, because losing a sale costs them more than shaving thousands off the sticker. For buyers who felt crushed by payments and betrayed by promises, this is the moment to flip the script. Dealers are on defense. Automakers are retreating. Workers are rising. Rivals are circling. But for you, the buyer, the power has shifted. This collapse that once looked like disaster is now your opportunity. The story doesn't stop here. Trucks collapsing in price is only the first crack in something far bigger. If you've watched this far, you already know the truth others are ignoring. Don't leave blind. Subscribe now, share this video, and stay ahead. Because the next chapter isn't about discounts. It's about survival, leverage, and the fight for control over your future.